Hello everyone in Oneness. Thank you so much for watching this video. In Oneness, I'm Jessica Delmar. This is part 3 of This is Where You Are on Your Ascension Journey, Trilogy Awakening. And if you haven't yet watched part 1 and part 2, go ahead and watch those parts first in order to understand this part even better. In part 1 and part 2, we spoke about the 8 steps of the physical incarnation's ascension journey to oneness through trilogy energy, directly in connection, in hand, simultaneously next to the 7 rays of light journey on a soul level. So this is about the soul, non-physical and physical journey back to oneness. And we left off in part 2 about how when a soul achieves that return back to source, that return back to the energy of oneness, up until this moment, there are 2 options. One option is for the soul to become source soul messengers, go wherever they are needed, wherever source energy is needed, in order to help open source energy into a planet, into an incarnation, wherever they're needed. The second option is for the soul to return back to the beginning, back to step 1 of the incarnation or the physical incarnation's ascension journey to oneness in a more expansive way in order to open more expansion for the soul. And so it's going to go through the 8 steps once again, through the 7 rays of light on a soul level in order to open up even more and more things for its own expansion. And just to be clear, when I mentioned that the soul returns back to the beginning to experience an incarnation so that on an incarnation level, it can go through the 8 steps to oneness. On a soul level, it can go through the 7 rays of light. This is a whole new experience. This is a whole new journey for the soul. So it will incarnate wherever it's meant to go next. It doesn't mean that they're returning back to the lifetimes that they just experienced from their previous journey. This is not a karmic thing. This is not a wheel of any way, shape, or form in that sense. This is about creating expansion in a whole new way, in a whole new set of lifetimes, however long it will take for that soul in its new journey back through that ride to make it to the other side. However long it takes. And of course, within an incarnation, they're going to bring in new situations, new challenges, new things that they can face that will help the soul expand in new ways. In this video, because this information was sparked from a client co-creation session, a high vibe heart message that came through a little bit ago, I wanted to bring through some information that came through for my client and how it connected her back to ancient Egypt. And we'll just kind of dive a little bit further into this whole concept of the 8 steps of the physical incarnation's ascension journey to oneness through trilogy energy, talking more about trilogy energy. And I'm very thankful and grateful for this client co-creation session that sparked this information, allowed me to dive a lot deeper in connecting to this information on a soul level in that oneness vortex and bringing through this information to share with others. Because it really helps to understand where we are on our ascension journey. And in part 2, we spoke about how the new earth or the birthing of new earth 5D is taking shape in our connection to our ascension journey and through these 8 steps, and where we are in understanding how we are creating that new earth physically, tangibly for us to experience it. And so let's get into this message for part 3. I'm going to read to you an excerpt that came through for my client in her message. What came through was, the soul is able to reach higher and higher levels of expansion by opening new paths in their experiences. For example, in a Choose Your Own Adventure book, you can complete the book one way, but if you were to read the book again from the beginning and choose other paths, the book will complete in another way, and there is expansion in both journeys. This is talking about how in part 2 I spoke about what had opened for my client is she had gone through these 8 steps previously in a soul expansion way and reached the energy of source, reached back into the energy of oneness, and she chose to return back to the beginning of mastering the self in a physical and non-physical way. Back to step 1 of the ascension journey to oneness, back to beginning the 7 rays of light journey on a soul level. And so it's basically saying and comparing it to a choose your own adventure book, and how you can complete an adventure or a journey in many different ways. And in each way of completing a journey, you can find expansion in every single way of completing that journey. And it's going to be different every single time. What came through is that many source souls, if they choose to return to the beginning of their infinite journeys once again, after reuniting with source and oneness, they may choose to open into more harder or more difficult lives in the next go-around if the path to oneness was an easier journey in the previous go-around. If the path to oneness was a hard one and a difficult one in the first go-around, then the soul may choose an easier, more fluid path in the next go-around. There are many ways and paths to reach oneness, and the ascension journey to oneness will not be the same for everyone. Even in a single soul who may reach the end of the ascension journey to oneness several times, may have different soul memories in their journeys towards reaching oneness. For as long as the universe exists, a soul may go around over and over and over again on the ascension journey to oneness, starting over again from the beginning in order to enjoy the ride from a new, different perspective and experience. So because a collective of souls tend to move together, tend to move as a unit, such as sort of what's happening right now, we're ascending together as a collective. This has possibly happened in the past, which is why it's kind of being shown how there was a collective of souls that reached the energy of oneness, that reached source in a past incarnation, and chose to return back to planet Earth to be part of this ascension process that we're going through right now. In order to be in a place within those 8 steps to oneness and within the 7 rays of light on a soul level, to be right here in the place that we are on our ascension journey, awakening, moving through this ascension, the souls knew that they would need to begin their journey back to oneness again around the time of ancient Egypt. So it was shown to me that there was a lot of those source souls that had already reached oneness who chose to come back again, start from the beginning, in this new experience, beginning with ancient Egypt. There were a few of those source souls who opened up into incarnations who remembered who they were. They remembered their past incarnations of reaching oneness and reaching source and that journey back to oneness. But at the same time, there were a lot of other souls who incarnated, who had previously reached oneness, but incarnating back onto a physical planet, there were also many souls who forgot. And so there began their new journey of their new long journey of incarnation after incarnation of reaching back to oneness on a physical and soul level. And so here we are, we find ourselves as a collective moving into the ascension, into New Earth, raising our vibration together as a collective. And many of us have kind of gone through these cycles together, although experiencing very different things in our own realities, in our own journeys back to oneness. But many are kind of in the same areas of the 8 steps to oneness on a soul level within the 7 rays of light, because we are moving as a collective. In knowing that their journey had only just begun once again, and that their journeys would be long, they knew that they would be here exactly where we are right now in our present day and time, lost in the depths of 3D and duality, but also in the time and where we are ascending in our energy. So, in ancient Egypt, many of these source souls, along with other ancient Egyptians, created these blueprints and maps for the future collective to help them us here and now navigate these times of ascension. In another client co-creation session, information about ancient Egypt and galactic magic and star seeds came through, which very much ties into this whole information presented here. Because in that session and this session, we begin talking about how in ancient Egypt, they had this ability to sort of fold space and time and see into the future, into where we are right now. And so knowing what would happen during this time, they were able to set up these blueprints and maps to help us to unlock this information, this hidden knowledge, hidden energy and frequency and vibration, that strong vibration and frequency held within structures such as the Sphinx and the pyramids of Egypt and other things, in order to help us during this time. And what needed to happen first is us remembering our connection to ancient Egypt, and that unlocks the knowledge and the energy of ancient Egypt into our now moment. I'm going to put a link to that other client co-creation session here below in the description. What came through next is that source souls returning to the incarnation process who chose ancient Egypt as their first incarnation after reaching source and oneness, chose to store their inner knowledge in the Sphinx of ancient Egypt, as well as in the pyramids, record keeping, and other ancient artifacts from that time. Inner knowledge is a form of energy, and that energy is what was stored. In the time that we are in right now, in the ascension journey of our collective, is the leveling up, so to speak, of energy on the planet. And this leveling up allows many in the collective to level up in their journeys of the 8 steps, the physical incarnation's ascension journey to oneness through trilogy energy, what we've been speaking about in part 1 and part 2. So for a lot of people, they're going to be opening up into the next step or further expanding within the step that they are in right now. The trilogy energy that opened up with the 4-4 portal in April opened the Is, Ra, and El energy, the trilogy energy of step 4 of mastering your spirit in the physical, in the self, the divine feminine, divine masculine, and Christ consciousness energy. And this trilogy energy started spilling onto the planet very, very strongly with that 4-4 portal in April, opening up into spring and continuing on into summer. Trilogy energy is working to balance energy on the planet, within the collective, within yourself as an individual on your ascension journey. So as these 3 energies, these 3 creation energies begin opening up more and more within the collective and within yourself, you begin balancing energy. The collective begins balancing its energy. The planet begins balancing its energy. This year, 2019, is all about the balancing of your inner energy, which what happens, or what has to happen first before that balance to be achieved, is for you to bring forward, or for the collective to bring forward, uncover, bring everything that was in the darkness, everything in the shadows, bring it all into the light. This trilogy energy is very much about exposing truth, exposing everything you've been holding on to that no longer serves you, in order to fully sweep all of that away, cleanse, clear, release, transmute that energy, where you are then therefore in a place where you have the space to integrate and begin activating higher vibrational energy within yourself and within the greater collective and planet. So this year, 2019, is a very integral year in terms of many people beginning to master step 4, move further along step 4 in terms of leveling up, or moving completely from step 4 into step 5. So there's just in general a lot of leveling up in terms of these 8 steps for souls, incarnations, moving through their ascension journey right now, just through the integration of these more balanced energies through and from this trilogy energy. And then this opening up into the collective consciousness will then be able to filter into everyone on the planet, connected to the collective consciousness, which then therefore is why what had come through in part 1, as we went through step 4, that in the next 2 to 5 years, many people who would be considered unawakened or unaware will begin to open up more into the spirit aspect of themselves, into step 4, into connecting to their higher self. And that it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to necessarily be a conscious thing. Many people will consciously open up into step 4, but for a lot of others, they can do it unconsciously, although they will still be aware that something is happening, something has shifted, something has transformed within them, because they're able to open up more higher vibrational energy and leave the lower vibrational energy where it was and not integrate that as much. Leave it, let it go, release it. And in integrating more higher vibrational energy, they open more purpose in their life. They open up into wanting to create a better life for themselves. And that will naturally open them further up in these 8 steps as they move through their journey. And so a person's ascension journey does not necessarily have to be a conscious, enlightened, spiritual experience for everyone. Everyone's going to experience their ascension journey differently. What came through is that the unfolding within the collective consciousness is happening right now with the divine feminine, divine masculine, Christ consciousness energy, spring, summer especially, and it's going to continue unfolding throughout this year. As this trilogy energy in the collective consciousness spreads, it filters into the physical beings of the collective. As this happens, people begin to awaken in masses. As mass awakening happens, a step up or a leveling up in consciousness ensues. When this happens, souls step up from wherever they are in these 8 steps and move into the next phase of their ascension journey. This can mean opening up into the next step or opening up into a more expansion or expansive view within the same step that you've been on, but either way, there will be an energetic leveling up when it comes to this trilogy energy in every soul journey on your planet. When this leveling up happens in the collective consciousness, it acts as an unlocking of sorts of the Sphinx energy and other important structures and containers across your planet that hold inner knowledge of many source souls on your planet. Source souls put their knowledge into these containers or these structures to keep them safe. So the Sphinx acts as the knowledge keeper of my client from this client co-creation session, in this instance, for example. Source souls stored their knowledge away, the energy, because they knew that this time around, incarnating again, starting from the beginning after achieving and reaching source and oneness, they knew that this time around, it would be harder to connect back to that knowledge that they had. So they knew on their journey this time around that they would go through this very low vibrational, lower dimensional space on Earth where their knowledge would become lost. And so they, by storing it in these structures and these containers, if you will, such as the Sphinx and the pyramids and written knowledge and other artifacts and stuff, they knew that this time would come right where we are right now in the ascension, where we would be leveling up in energy, and that us leveling up would unlock these artifacts, these structures, these containers, and pour what came through is unlocking these structures which hold or held their inner knowledge from a long time ago, would open up, pour onto the planet, and integrate within the source souls on the planet once again. Continuing the journey back to oneness after previously reaching oneness is not starting from ground zero. Like a slinky, like what we were talking about, the spiral keeps moving up and up and up. So even if you begin again, incarnating back into step 1 or below possibly, you are still at a more expanded point within your soul that will open up new and more expansive opportunities for growth on a soul level. The 8 steps or layers of the slinky within the Ascension journey to oneness through Trilogy energy represents infiniteness, meaning that the soul journey is an infinite cycle of this Ascension journey to oneness on a soul level and a physical level. This information is coming forward because the unlocking of the Sphinx, pyramids, and other ancient artifacts, and even written scribes that have been knowledge keepers for many of you on earth, many light workers especially, will begin opening and spilling your knowledge onto the planet. You will rendezvous with your inner lost knowledge of source and oneness and your past journeys to oneness. You will begin to integrate more and more of your inner lost knowledge as you integrate more and more of knowing who you truly are. Source soul messengers have incarnated with the energy of Source in body on your planet to help awaken others and gently push others into their greater soul mission. Source souls who are in the middle of their infinite cycle of another incarnation's journey to oneness will be awakened and play important roles in the transition into physical New Earth 5D. These include leadership roles and active roles in the building of New Earth on all levels, ranging from intimate to large. This is going to happen in many areas of your society, your communities, your cities, countries, regions, organizations such as health and finance and government and technology, businesses, neighborhoods, families, and many, many other spaces. There is no role that is too big or too small. Many will also awaken to their knowledge to help play the role of awakening others as well. It is time, and you are being prepared energetically to be in a vibrational space to rendezvous with your inner lost knowledge when these ancient structures and artifacts awaken with your ability as a collective to unlock them. I asked, does that mean that everyone on the planet right now is essentially a source soul? And what came through was, your souls have been incarnating in infinite cycles indefinitely. Most of the souls on your planet are source souls, having gone around the merry-go-round at least once. We can also get into the intricacies of souls it's like their first experience here on Earth, but they are tied to galactic lives or other vibrational other dimensional, other beings from other galaxies, but we're not going to get into that. This information coming forward in terms of the source souls is purely about souls that have been in the incarnation process on Earth Gaia already through these cycles. So most of these souls have gone through this infinite journey to oneness, these 8 steps, the 7 rays of light. What came through is that most source souls, having chosen to go around the incarnation merry-go-round, so to speak, again and again, have lost their way, especially during the downfall of Gaia and falling into lower vibrations and dimensions and moving into that linear timeline portal especially. This made it harder for these source souls to remember who they truly are, and therefore got stuck in your planet's karmic wheel, making this go-around incarnation journey, these 8 steps to oneness, a much, 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 much longer journey than the one before. The incarnation journey will continue to exist even without your planet's karmic cycle. Incarnation is an opportunity for the soul to continue to expand and grow. The karmic wheel on your planet kept souls stuck in the mud, so to speak, so that when they incarnated again, they were not in a place of expansion, but still stuck in the mud, exactly where they left off. So the karmic wheel on planet Gaia prevented souls from really stepping up in these 8 steps, this ascension journey to oneness through Trilogy energy. It's like they're showing me a lot of souls stayed in step 1 or they weren't even in these steps for a long time. And so the soul journey is very much about moving from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 and so on and so forth, making their way up. but the karmic cycle kept souls stuck in a single step over and over and over again, or not even understanding and recognizing the first initial step of this ascension journey through trilogy energy. What came through is that now that the karmic wheel is released from your planet, incarnating again and again will not be as hard as it was in your recent past. Incarnating will open opportunity for expansion and growth. And the higher vibrational reality that you incarnate into, the higher vibrational energy you will incarnate as, and will remember more and more of who you truly are straight from the beginning. So it's like, as we are ascending and people will begin incarnating again into the next lifetime, the planet, the energy will continue ascending. So you're going to be incarnating into an even higher vibrational planet Earth, planet Gaia, holding higher vibration as you incarnate into the planet. And so you're going to begin incarnating with your knowledge into a higher vibrational space, allowing for your expansion on a soul level, versus when we were having that karmic cycle in the decline of energy and vibration and dimension of Earth, or stuck in that linear timeline portal. The incarnations got stuck. The incarnations were coming in with lower vibrational energy and forgetting and all of that. So it's going to be completely shifting in terms of the incarnation cycle. I asked, in terms of incarnating into higher vibrational planet Earth, planet Gaia, some of us coming into future incarnations with our knowledge already, I asked, but doesn't remembering who we truly are from the beginning when we incarnate, doesn't that prevent us from expanding as much on a soul level as if, us incarnating into a life forgetting who we are or being behind that veil? Us being behind the veil and forgetting who we truly are and making or having that ascension journey to remembering who we truly are, that offers so much expansion on a soul level. So I just wanted to know how the expansion would work on a soul level if we already came in knowing who we truly are. What came through is that opening into an incarnation in basically knowing who you truly are, it still offers areas of expansion in knowing who you truly are. Even if you were to incarnate into a life forgetting who you truly were, you would still end up remembering who you truly are. And from that point of remembering who you truly are, that moment onward, you would still open up even more expansion like you've never seen before. This is kind of just cutting out the first part of that incarnation, if you will, that part of forgetting. This opens up expansion in so many other ways, in terms of embodying your higher self and expressing life and experiencing life through that embodiment of your higher self. The karmic cycle and depth of the veil on your planet previously prevented many souls from expansion and growth for a very, very, very long time, eventually completely forgetting who they truly are. So that veil can actually, it's like they're saying it was a slippery slope. So yes, if a person was able to understand that they had a veil on and that they had forgotten who they truly were, and they were able to open up into expansion and remember who they truly are, that definitely offered expansion beyond what you can imagine on a soul level. But that having that veil upon planet Gaia and the incarnations that opened up on planet Gaia was a slippery slope, and it held a lot of people down. It prevented a lot of people from expanding on a soul and physical level. So now that we are going to begin opening up into incarnations, without as strong of a veil, or without a veil eventually, we are going to begin finding expansion in new ways and in so many other different ways that allow for expansion and offer room for expansion versus the veil, the forgetting. It did not allow for the expansion as much. It kept a lot of people down, stuck in the mud, and I'm just seeing it was just very heavy. So that's exciting, and it allows us to look forward to expansion in such a different way, because right now we all know expansion from the challenges, from the suffering that we've gone through and the overcoming of a lot of things. And so now it's going to be interesting to open up into expansion from a whole new viewpoint, from a higher vibrational viewpoint. And that will be really interesting to see unfold for Gaia and for the collective in the future. This is the end of part 3 of this series, Trilogy Awakening, and I hope that it offered you some clarity in terms of what's going on an individual and collective scale in terms of the Ascension, and how we are directly connected to creating New Earth 5D, and how we are expanding on a physical and non-physical soul level. Thank you so much for watching this video. Together with you in Oneness, I am Jessica Delmar. Oneness and love be with you.